Let's now move on and talk about some important figures in pragmatics. Here I'll talk about some key thinkers who have actually proposed various important concepts in contemporary pragmatics, or based on their concepts we have developed certain ideas in pragmatics. I'll begin with John Langshaw Austin, which is popularly known as J.L. Austin or just Austin. Austin can clearly be said as one of the key founders of contemporary pragmatics. His theory of speech acts has been popular since its origin, and it is at the basis of various pragmatic concepts in our contemporary academic work. Austin's famous book, How to Do Things with Words, focuses on the performance of various acts through words. And this book and his theory of speech acts is based on the proposition or hypothesis that words are not, or the language is not there just to convey facts or to make statements. Rather, we do perform acts similar to physical acts through words also. And all those words are called speech, all those acts are called speech acts. He has three justifications to propose such arguments. For example, how to use words. The way we use words actually inform us that we use them to perform various acts. Similarly, words are distinct from facts. So words do not embody facts only, rather they are used to perform various speech acts, for example, to make requests, orders, apologizing, and many other functions. The third justification is that our common stock of words embodies all the distinctions men draw or men have found worth drawing. So words do distinguish from each other. The same words might convey a different meaning in a different context. So we have to rely on context in order to understand the meaning of the words. A decisive consideration in this regard can be that the same form of words can be used as a performative or as a constative. Performative, something which performs a certain action, or constative, which just makes a statement and doesn't perform any action, depending on intention and context in which an interaction is happening. Austin preferred to see all utterances as performative because he believed that all language is used to convey or to perform a certain action. Even in those statements which apparently look constative, they may be conveying a certain information or may be performing a certain action indirectly. For example, if you look at the statement, "Can I borrow your car?" We have another performative here, that I promise to return it in perfect condition. I mean, it's not only a request, but it's also a promise to return it. So we do have performatives. Some of the performatives are clear and some are indirect in various statements. According to Austin, if the force of an utterance is not determined by its linguistic structure, just as all actions, physical actions, are not performed by bodily movements, rather we can perform various actions through multiple gestures or other things also. So you don't have to have very clear and loud physical movements or big movements in order to perform a certain action. What else comes in to determine the type of action performed? What do we need to determine that what kind of action is performed if the linguistic structure of words is not clear? For example, we might say a plain statement to mean a question. So what would determine, because the form is of a plain statement, how could we understand that it is being a question? For example, if you are waiting for a guest in your house and you just listen to your bell ringing and you say "aa gaye hain," so that would actually mean कि क्या मेहमान आ गए हैं, I mean, have a guest arrived, that would be a question, but what you ask is a plain statement. So what can be done or said in order to determine the actual meaning? And the answer, according to Austin, is that we can look into the intention of the speaker and the convention of the context or social conventions in which a certain things are being said. For example, the example I have just given, intention of the speaker is to ask a question about the arrival of the guest. And the convention is that we usually in such situations we ask questions through plain statements. Though everybody listening to such statement would understand this, that the person is asking about the arrival of the guest. Conventions are also, these social conventions decide the illocutionary force of a certain utterance. And that illocutionary force is the force behind or the intended meaning of the speaker. If we are able to understand this illocutionary force, only then we are able to understand the real meaning, also the speech act being performed there. So he had in mind speech acts which are embedded in fixed social routines. For example, how we name different things, how we call people, how we invite people, that all depends on social conventions. There are certain felicity conditions also which needs to be performed properly in order to perform a speech act, and we see that these conditions are to be met in order to complete a certain speech act. It is not surprising that this aspect of Austin's work on speech acts has appealed to contemporary pragmatic theorists. And as I said earlier, illocutionary force is the biggest determiner of the indirect or intended meaning of the speaker. Also, it helps us to determine the performance of a speech act. Which speech act is being performed? Is it performable or not? We will be able to understand this through knowing the illocutionary force of a speech act.